Continued. It's an incredible, incredible metaphor that moment. And remember, Eric Bartholomew, and you want to talk about corporate boards. This was the crookedest IPO in history. This was so mobbed up. It was the capitulation of the crooked IPO mobbed up freaking nightmare. These crooks. This guy, the spin out, Eric Bartholomew, a few years later, this has got to be said because it's not my book. A few years later, you remember when SunPower, when all the hype in about 2007 was the hype? The same exact scam was pulled by the exact same guy. So I got on the phone. I made a phone call. I found the number to the finance department. I left a nasty message. And I says, you better have your CEO because I know I'm going to the FBI. I know what you're doing and whatever. This is a true story. A couple minutes later, his phone call came back. It was the CFO himself. He called me of the SunPower spin out, which was the exact identical. I said, what are you doing? I know what you did. You pulled it last time with the 3-comp spin out, which is the moment the technology revolution ended in this country, which is the moment the stock market capitulated. March 10, 2000, that's what capitulated. And he told me, he says, I says, you're unloading all your stock? He says, yeah. He unloaded for $100 million right then. I says, you're a crook, you're a crook. No, anything could happen with this market, blah, blah. He says, no, and I went off on him. You know, and this was the CFO. I have his name, I have his, Eric Bartholomew, the same. So they're on multiple boards. This is the robbery and the thievery that goes on. This is the 1% repression. That's what this book is about. That's what my movement is about. This was this foundation. This is reactionary art. This is repressionary countering. Well, I was a young art student at Weber in the 90s. Jane, a very out front, incredible mind, loved my work. Jane Catlin. I was into a form of psychological art in the context of life forward and back. I had made post-ignorance. She said to me one day, that's when I invented post-ignorance. I came up with the post-ignorance idea in 1993. To me, Kevin, you must pursue this art form of yours. You have a brain like I have never seen. This movement of yours could be very big. I have brought you some books you should read. Very advanced subject matter. Way ahead of our times. One talked about something I have always believed in, the subconscious as a young person seeing the future. Roundness of life, and it is all round. This is clear back in '94, and my subconscious, when I was dying of cancer earlier this year, my subconscious came to me and says, you are not going to die. And that's, you know, it's amazing. Which she knew I was into. I thought of all that conversation with her right at that moment. I for a moment thought the Industrial Revolution was the beginning. This might be the end. Then I thought, no, it is far from over. His answer was the same as the neo-ignorant masses we were becoming. Trying to impeach a president in the height of the richest wealth accumulation of all Americans. Let's think about that. Tom DeLay, who was found guilty for money laundering last year, you do know that. He was found on several felonies. Of course, he's not in jail, you know. Let's think about that. And this book pours into it. How rich was this country in the 90s? We had an incredible powerful, we had a Cinderella syndrome going economically. We had markets rising fast. We had millionaires being all that, and we had the dollar. The consumer was being empowered by the powerful power. The dollar to the euro was 80 cents. Gas was $1.34 a gallon. I can go on and on. Oil was $10 a barrel. Gold was $200 an ounce. And at the same time, the most prosperous time in the history of this country, bar none. These radical, hairsprayed, fake Christian, freaking weirdo creeps were trying to impeach the president for having getting a blowjob from a freaking overweight chubby girl. Wow. What a commentary on a sick, mentally disturbed society. His answer, a stammering mess, and I told Mike, if he was in Dr. Cooley's class, he would be thrown out of the program. He laughed. The stock fell from 170 to 80 in one day. Within seconds of the neo-ignorant non-answer, the stock fell from 120 to 90 in seconds. So back to the lab. Jake is on watch. Him and David Weeks, watching for the confirmation of the $35,000 worth of puts, which right at that moment were worth well over $800,000. Nothing yet, Jake says. I told Jake and David, no way I got them. I fucked up big time. I should have put in a market order. I knew they were being traded on the Chicago floor, and I have never been screwed on those floor traders. I've never been screwed by the CBOE, ever, never. It was always the Amex, the curbside, those crooks in New York. The Chicago traders never screwed me. Of course, that Rick Santelli with his crooked teeth, go get your teeth fixed, freak. He's going on his radical, stupid, ignorant rant about Barack Obama 29 days after, which after, you know, his mentality and his people caused the whole madness, and then he wants to shoot the messenger. What a big mouth. You think him and Joe Kernan, you know, go get your fucking teeth fixed for real, really. Unlike the New York floor, I had never been screwed by these floor traders, unlike the New York floor where they screwed everybody every chance they got. So finally there was a confirmation. No, Phil, I just laughed. Comment saying, how can you just laugh at $800,000? Remember, I was still in my 30s then. I said either laugh or cry. You got to remember, I was in the height of money, in the height of sex, in the height of everything. I was living so large, it was unreal. You know, until a few months earlier on these tragic deaths, it devastated me. My whole world came crashing down. The arbitrage never filled, and the rest is history. The Palm smartphone, the greatest of all the technology revolution, including Ashton and Bastion's operating system, which was squandered away just like Palm. Eric B., which is no doubt the dumbest billionaire in history, had screwed the 3Com and Palm owners over the next few years out of hundreds of billions of dollars. I can and here, in no doubt, are no dumb billionaires. Tell that to the potato chip and Bernie. Right, Dan? You know who I'm talking about. Quell, Folks, Lay, Madoff, and the other thousands of them, not to the easiest way, very hard, like the Mayan hard Texas U. Austin, they get it. It was a University of Texas young man and some professors who broke the Mayan code, by the way. That's what I'm speaking about. And if you say there's no dumb billionaires, there's no dumb billionaires. Look at all the Fox News radical commentators. You go spew radical, and the dumber you get, the better your show. Because there is a demographic in this country to feed ignorance. Like Gates and WordPerfect in the beginning of the technology revolution had handed Gates on a platinum platter, on you know what a Balco platinum platter. Eric and the Palm 3Com board handed Steve Jobs, unlike Gates, who did not steal anything. Jobs did not steal anything, simply picked up the billions of dollars someone forgot. Steve Jobs, Steve Chinese Jobs, not Monica or Axl Rose and Guns N' Roses, one of the two icons of the 90s in regard to music, and the other, of course, Nirvana. He's saying, I just found $1 million someone forgot. Man does imitate art, and art does imitate man. Great art is in front of man, by years out in front of both. Just like Nirvana and Guns N' Roses, the greatest music of our time, the technology revolution signature artists, art, they like Debussy to the Impressionist. He did win the million this year. The horse Debussy did win the Arlington Million when I wrote this. I bet it just because I love Debussy's music, and I love it. Both, just like WordPerfect and Nirvana, both had a mission to destroy themselves. Were hell-bent on suicide and arrogance. Kurt killed himself. He told everyone he's going to do it his entire life. Like Axl's arrogance and fuck everyone attitude. That was WordPerfect and Palm. WordPerfect killed itself. Like Cobain, Palm let its own arrogance be given away, just like Guns N' Roses. And Steve Jobs, like the great wrestler, just sat back and let them over-leverage himself and sang out loud, I just found 800 billion someone forgot. Update, several trillion after he's dead. I went to see Guns N' Roses in Salt Lake in the 90s, which I had seen every iconic rock band in history in my whole life in Salt Lake and or Ogden. They have signs telling you where to cheer now. And beer police, for real, beer police. They showed up over an hour late. I got to talk about this beer police. When I was a kid, we had season tickets to the Jazz the first year, $141 on the front row. This old Salt Palace, this was a progressive, dynamic, beautiful state, Utah. Beautiful, incredible females. The sexual revolution was on. Weed smoking so was heavy in there. I was not much of a weed smoker, I really wasn't. But you were high just being in the arena. It was a beautiful, magnificent time in this place. It was the girls here, nothing on California, nothing on California had nothing on us. Well, it was so wild in those arenas. I'm seeing girls take their clothes off, people smoking weed. It was so intensely incredible wild, and everybody loved it. It was just the way it was here. But these parks right here had nothing on. Golden Gate had nothing on us. Me and my girlfriend here right then went to a jazz game. She at the time, Rachel, she's 34 years old. We've since split our ways. The guy with a jacket said, "Beer please," come back up on him, and asked her for her ID. She had left her purse in the car. I had to walk nearly a mile to get her ID. I was so outraged. We went from all that while. I said, "Why don't you just put up signs that tell us when to clap?" That's what we've evolved to. That is the hardcore reality of repression. They showed up an hour late, and Axel was so wasted he could barely stand up, let alone sing. The crowd booed. After only just a few minutes, he said, "Fuck all you Mormons," flipped the bird and walked off. Just like Gary B. and the board of 3Com and the Pop Div told all the palm shoulders, "Fuck off," and flipped us the bird. It is important to remember this. In 2007, Eric B. and the same people pulled the exact same scam again. Remember SunPower, SPWR, the spin-out form, it got 3Com, the exact same board members. Don't think that an arbitrage got by me. I called the CFO secretaries. You know how calling investor relations for any company is, you never get through. You never hear back. I left a message that said, "I know you think the whole world has forgot about the fraud you guys pulled off on the 3Com palm spin out. I know. I think no one knows. You're going to be the exact same thing with the SunPower spin out. You do not think everyone knows? You are the exact people. But you do not know me. I know you. Try me." The CFO himself called me, which I knew he had other members had just unloaded hundreds of millions of their position. You know, it's public. I knew that he just unloaded all that money. I know how to watch the insider moves between the lines. It's all over websites if you know the right websites to get on. I always have. He was very defensive. I said, "I am sure you were not the scam culprit. I know who the culprits were," and told him I know Eric the Crook B and his friend scam. I alerted the SEC of both scenarios. Not even an email back, not a phone call, not anything. I knew better. This is the great time of the conservatives, and under this great 30-year empowerment, white-collar crime is not only illegal, it is encouraged. It is our economy. Long live the kings. Again, I wrote this over 2 years ago. It is like when the SEC in the 2000 under Bush, the lowest IQ president in history. By the way, can you imagine his father doing a book signing at Costco? Wow, an ex-president of the United States of America, one of the greatest, most powerful leaders in the past 200 years, signing books at a discount warehouse. Know that it is a metaphor. Talk about a massive metaphor. He was here yesterday, right here in Kool-Aidville, Utah, at the Costco. I told Tony one day, how can the SEC investigate? They do not even know what a derivative, let alone a spin-out arbitrage is. It's like talking geography with a congressman or a woman, no clue. 4 days after the Palm Nightmare and the capitulation of the technology revolution, Anthony had a mild stroke. He retired the next day. His son by law and contract took over. Of course, I never saw my $300,000 bonus, and Anthony did write me a personal check for $50,000. His scumbag stunts screwed me like I knew they would. I had a few months ago, his sons and his 2 grandsons were under investigation by the state of New York. Do not you think it is odd that it is under the SEC, the police for the public's money? It is never them who indicts or goes after the Wall Street crooks. It is always the state of New York. Again, remember I wrote this 2 years ago. Cuomo's going after him now. It's always the state of New York, Spitzer, and they teed his ass up. The SEC is a scam. It was a scam then. Here's how it works. The investment banking community, Sachs, back then, they were doing it to our firm. We had they came to me. We had these brilliant traders, or these brilliant minds were in the SEC. Saxy people would just go to them. How much you making? Well, I make $123,000 a year. We'll give you that in bonus a year for the next 10 years. You don't even have to work. We'll triple your salary immediately. Just put on the contract, go to the beach. That's what they do. That's for real. Spitzer and/or Como, anyway. He is back on CNBC. You do know the man fears no one. He has a brain and has balls. That's when Spitzer went on CNBC. You see how long that, or CNN? And now you wonder why CNN's plummet. They replaced Spitzer with Erin Burnett. Remember, Erin Burnett was the girl who used to sit right next to that fat Twinkie eater and the grandstand propaganda machine for the Wall Street crooks. That's her. That's her. He'd make fun of, I eat Twinkies. He laughed at death. He laughed at it every day. Well, his heart blew up like a nuclear bomb and dropped dead. And that girl, I guarantee, has never had sex in her life. She is so confused. She's the seriously girl. They replaced Spitzer with her and watched their number and wonder why CNN's numbers plummet. Again, I wrote this over 2 years ago. Remember that. And their numbers plummet. I wonder why. As the corporate board, we know your name, the corporate board member from CNN. He resigned. We know who you are. We know who you are. As you promoted the Fukushima cover-up with Sanjay Gupta, let's go fishing at Chernobyl. We know who you are. And I will historically put it in concrete. I already have. Everybody knows via my rants. Watch him as he gets the media comfort zone. Mark my words, he will stay on some big fish soon. He is the first news media I've seen in years who is savvy. After the spring of 2000, the reality of my deep, deep sad set in. My life began to crumble, and I had trouble even carrying that it was crumbling. The reality of my divorce and my death of my father and Clyde was reality now. I had a whole new anger, and I didn't care anymore. Fuck it all. I told my mother, I have done everything right my whole life. I have worked hard from a young man, learned a very sophisticated trade with my back, my hawk and trowel. Worked for years educating myself via Weber State in the School of Hard Knocks. I've raised my girls with love and compassion and being there by their side, just like Digger, my father, did. I will never live for the future again. Never. I will never live for the rest of my life for today. I will always live for today. I will go back to my younger days of drinking and chewing tobacco and sleeping with as many females as I want.